Making the offers is really where the rubber meets the road. Everything we do up until this moment in time is just busy work, because until we put a number in front of a seller or an agent, we will never get a deal. And that's the biggest takeaway that we can get from making offers. This is by far the most important step. As far as I'm concerned, you are doing the business not until you start making offers. Whatever else you're doing isn't doing the business. You're just telling yourself you're busy or learning or setting up your systems or getting a CRM or whatever, but you're not actually doing the business until you start making offers. And so this may sound self-explanatory, but if you don't make offers, you don't get deals, and you don't do deals and make any money. It literally comes down to making the offer. If you were to spend time in this business working on your first deal, and the day goes by, and at the end of the day, when your head hits the pillow, if you can't say to yourself, I made offers today, then you aren't doing the business. I don't know what you're doing, but you're not doing the business. You've got to get to this point in the game. First, I want to talk about the on-market model for making offers. And if you remember from day one, when we talked about finding, we have basically 3 different strategies that we want to implement with on-market. We want to do the sniper method, where we're calling agents directly on listed properties that are distressed, and we want to make offers on those properties. But we're also going to do the shotgun method, which is just cold outreach, right? We're just cold calling agents. Doesn't matter what agent, as long as that agent's in your market. And we're basically just saying, hey, when you get a deal, call me, right? I'm an investor. I'm all cash. I'd like to help your sellers that are in distress. Let's put a deal together before you go list it. Makes everybody's life better. That's the shotgun method, right? So we're going to be doing that cold outreach. And then we have the reload method, which is basically just following up on our sniper and shotguns method. We're just reaching back out to those agents that we've previously made connections with, and we're following up. The key to all of this is the follow-up, because it's front of mind. When that agent sits down with a seller on a listing appointment and they're like, man, this property needs a lot of work. What I really need here is an investor. That's the best solution for this seller. Man, who do I know that's a cash buyer that could help this seller? Oh, Jerry. Now, why are they thinking, oh, Jerry? Because Jerry's the one following up with them all the time. So I stay front and center in that agent's mind. I want them to remember me. I'll tell agents all the time, save my number as Jerry Cash Buyer. And that way, when they search in their phone cash buyer, I pop up, right? I want them to be always thinking about me when they run into a need for a cash buyer. This is our model, right? This is our on-market model. So what's our goal here? Now, anything's better than nothing, but ideally, if you want to kill it at this game, and I'm talking about students I have in my fast track program that are doing 5 deals a month, just doing the agent model, no other method. Here's what they're doing. They're doing 5 snipers a day. So they're calling listed properties, 5 of those a day, making an offer. I'll show you how we do that in a second. By the way, the sniper method is going to take about 15 minutes each one, because you're going to talk about the property for sale, and you're going to have a conversation and then make an offer. They're doing 5 cold outreach, shotgun method a day. It's just a real quick conversation, right? It's a 5 minutes, sometimes less. You're calling, you're introducing yourself, you're talking about how you're an investor, and basically call me when you get something that fits. So you can do those very quickly, right? You can do 5 of those literally in a half an hour. And then we're going to do 5 follow-ups. So now we're going to track everybody we meet, and we're going to be following up with them. Now, ideally, we follow up with agents that we've made connections with, either through sniper or shotgun, once a week. Now, that's not hard and fast, but you want it to be consistent and regular. So you're going to have your list, and you're going to run through your list. Now, does it have to be a phone call? Not every single time. Like, you could send a text and say, hey, it's Jerry. We spoke last week, just checking in. Do you have any properties I can make an offer on? Is there anything I can do to help you? It could be a text. It could be an email. Now, don't do it all that way, because the real connection happens when you talk to people, not when you text and email. So if you do it that way, maybe every other week, pick up the phone and call them, but you're going to do 5 of those a day. And again, those are about 5 minutes each. So if you break down the 5-5-5 offer method, 5 snipers, 5 shotguns, 5 reloads, 5-5-5, think that right now, 5-5-5. If you did this every day, it's going to take probably about 2 to 3 hours. Okay, 2 to 3 hours. That's it. I mean, maybe that's a lot for you if you're juggling lots of things. But in the big scheme of things, to get to a point where you're doing 5 deals a month with agents, once you build it up, that's what it'll be. Once you build up a good pipeline and you've got really good follow-ups happening, In time, that's all it takes to be doing 3 to 5 deals a month consistently is this 5-5-5 method. So guys, in the comment section right now, I want you to put in there 5-5-5 method. I'm on it, Jerry. And what this means though, is it means if you're going to do the 5-5-5 method, you need to block out about 2 to 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Now, if you do that, you're going to be hitting that 100 plus offers a month because 5 of these are sniper, which means you're actually making an offer on listed properties. So those 5 are legit offers. And then the shotgun and the reloads, those are going to, in time, are going to start to turn into lead flow as well. Those are going to turn into real deals that you make offers on. So you're going to be hitting this 100 offers a month doing the 5-5-5 method. This is key here though, guys. Like you've got to grasp this. And if this sinks in and you see the vision of this and you're consistent with it, you will start doing deals. You'll get your first deal. And then, like I said, it's not about doing one deal. I hope you're not here to just do one deal. It's one deal to get proof of concept. And then it's to go on and build a 6-figure business first, and then move past that to a 7-figure business. So that's the 5-5-5 method. Now let's talk about a couple of key things with agents. You have to be doing my trademarked double dip technique. I came up with this 20 years ago when I got started. For years and years, I was the only person that taught how to wholesale with agents on market for years, probably 15 years. This has only become now mainstream in the education space in the past couple of years. In fact, when I first started teaching this on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, there was contradictory education that said you cannot wholesale on market properties. Like that was content. You cannot wholesale on market properties. Now this is a regular go-to strategy for a lot of people. I created this technique called the double dip technique. Now what this is it's where you go directly to the listing agent. You do not have buyer representation. If you have buyer representation, this won't work because we need the buyer side to offer to the listing agent. And that's what we're doing. We're going to go direct to the listing agent every single time. So every deal that you do on market, you're working with that agent on their listing and that's it. So don't make any commitments to agents that they're going to be your go-to buyer's agent for ongoing deals. So you go directly to the listing agent. You're going to offer him or her to represent you on the buyer side. Now, things are different today than they've ever been because of the new rules around commission structure with agents. So I want to make sure you're aware of how to do this now today. It's a little bit different. You're going to say to that agent, hey, I'm unrepresented and I want to let you represent me on the buyer side. How does that sound? And so then the agent now has the option. They've got some options here. They have 3 choices really that the agent could do. They could waive the buyer side, which means they're just going to take a commission from the seller and they're not going to take a buyer side commission. Some agents will do that. They could have the seller pay it. So they could represent you as the buyer and we ask the seller to pay that commission. You can do that now. You can ask the seller to pay it. You can't advertise that the seller will pay it, but you can ask the seller to pay it. Or you as the buyer pay that commission. And when I say you as the buyer, if we wholesale, we pass that on to the new buyer. So the cash buyer will pay it. If it's waived, all that means is now the seller only has to pay the 3% commission to their listing agent and there's no other commission. So you don't have to factor it in. The seller doesn't have to factor it in. Nobody gets it, but it does affect the price because now there's no buyer side commission to worry about. If the seller pays it, then that means the seller has to now net out all the commission when he or she considers the price. If the buyer pays it, then the seller now doesn't have to worry about it. It doesn't affect their price, but it does affect your price, which means you need to factor it into your number. So whatever your number is that you need to get the deal for, if you're offering to pay the buyer's commission, then you need to subtract that commission off of your price to get your new adjusted price, right? You got to build it in. Okay, I hope this makes sense, guys, because you really got to understand this if you're going to start doing agent deals. You got to understand that now the commission has to be talked about. It used to just be paid by the seller, so it wasn't really a conversation, but now it needs to be talked about. So all you do is you say, hey, we could ask the seller to pay the buyer commission, or I can pay it. We'll factor it into the deal either way, so what would you prefer? So you're just asking the agent what they think is best. They may say, hey, the seller's already factored it in. He's already counting on paying it. No big deal. Let's just have the seller pay it. Or they may say, you know what? It would be a big value add to not ask the seller to pay it. So let's leave it out. That makes the agent's job a lot easier because now they can go to the seller and they can say, hey, I've got a buyer, but he's taking care of the commission for me. Don't worry about it. All you got to do is worry about my commission with you. So this allows the agent to have a much better position with their sellers. Think about it this way, guys. This is where I'm so excited about the new rule. Here's what I'm coaching my agents to do. Ideally, we buy these off market. So the agent meets a seller on a listing appointment. They sit down with the seller. It's distressed. And the agent says this to the seller. They say, look, we can go on market with this and see what the market does. But because the property needs some work, we're probably going to have a lot of showings. We're going to have inspections. We're going to have appraisals. We're going to have buyers asking for repairs. It's going to be a lot of work. You know what? I know an investor that's all cash. Why don't we see what he can give in a price for cash? And I'll tell you what, seller, I know this investor and I work with him. He'll cover any commission. You don't even have to worry about it. All you need to worry about is if the number works that we get for you. How's that sound? And now the seller doesn't even have to pay any commission. The agent can then work out with you the commission. So I tell agents this, I say, look, as long as I get the number I need to be at, we can add on your commission to that and it can be whatever you want. Why don't we make it 10%? You're used to making 3% as a listing. Let's make it 10%. I'll pay the whole 10% and we'll just build it into the deal. So if I need to be at 100,000 for this deal to work, let's go to the seller at 90, and then I'll factor on paying you a $10,000 commission if I get the deal done. See what I mean? We build it into the deal and now you pay it though. The agent gets to have a really powerful conversation with the seller. So guys, leave a comment and say, Jerry, this is really awesome. This is going to make the way that we interact with agents and do deals way better. Leave a comment and say, I'm super excited about the new agent model with commissions. This is the conversation. I want you guys to really grasp this conversation here. What you're going to be talking about here is future business. The goal with agents is not the deal in hand, it's the relationship. I'm going to say that again and again today. So here's what we say. We say, ideally, next time you meet with a seller on a listing appointment that has a distressed property, call me before you list it. I'll provide a cash offer, and if the seller accepts, we can avoid going on market, saving everyone time and hassle. Best of all, I can pay you a really good commission. That's the conversation we want to have. That's the point of every time we talk to agents, is to get to this place. My best deals with agents are off market. They don't even hit the market because I have a relationship and they call me first. And that's how we get deals done. Okay, so let's talk about the process now. The way that we typically do on market is we do verbal first and then follow up with it in writing. Okay, so I'll say to an agent, call up the seller and put this offer in front of the seller. Tell the seller that you've got a cash buyer and their number's 100,000 and they can close in 30 days and whatever other terms, right? But let's get a verbal done first. If the seller says yes, then let's follow up, put it in writing. Now, why do we do this? Ideally, it's better if it's in writing. It looks more legit, it's more real. But the problem is agents are lazy because a lot of our offers are going to be much lower than list price. So they don't want to waste their time. At least they think it's wasting their time. It's not, but they think it is. So what I do is I do a two-step approach. Do the verbal first, get the seller to say yes, then we'll follow up in writing. Now, guys, who writes the offer on market? Who writes the offer? It's on market, it's listed for sale with an agent. Who writes the offer? Put that in the comments right now if you know. Do you write the offer or does the agent write the offer? We'll see how well you guys are paying attention here. So who writes the offer? This is important because either you have to come up with the contract and write the offer or the agent handles that for you. And hopefully, guys, you put the right answer in, which is the agent writes the offer and the agent's going to use their state-approved contract. So everyone's going to look a little different. It's going to be based on whatever state you're transacting. So they're going to come up with the contract. They're going to fill it all out. They're going to send it to you through like a DocuSign type of thing to sign. Now, just because the agent fills out and creates the contract, the offer, doesn't mean that you don't have to tell the agent what to include in the offer. You have to come up with that and make sure that they're putting everything in that contract that you need for it to be a wholesaler-friendly contract. And so this is what I call my agent offer sheet. And guys, this is included as a download, so make sure you download this, but I want to review it quickly with you. So there are 10 things that you want the agent to include. And so what I do is I fill out this offer sheet, I send it to the agent, I either text it or I email it to the agent, and this has everything the agent needs to then fill out the contract and send it to you. So in essence, you're still doing the contract, but they're the ones using their state-approved form. They're the one that's going to fill it out and send it to you. You're just telling them what to include in it. So first is your buyer name and address. So if your LLC happens to be Jerry is a Flipping Genius LLC, you would say that's the buyer. And then you would have your address, whatever address you have. And on step one here with the name and address, one of the questions I get often is, do I need to include and or assigns? Now, and or assigns means that Jerry is a Flipping Genius LLC is the buyer, or anyone else I assign the contract to. Now, you can add that if you want. If there's nowhere in the contract the agent uses that says you cannot assign it, if it doesn't say anywhere in there that you need permission to assign it, if it says nothing about the assignment, then by nature, you are allowed to assign it. All contracts are assignable unless stated otherwise. So if it doesn't say you cannot assign it, then you can assign it. So if that's the case, then I'll leave out the and or assigns usually, because I don't want to red flag the agent and the seller that I'm a wholesaler. And that's what that sort of does. So it's an unnecessary objection sometimes. Now, you may need it in there if there's any unclarity as to whether or not you can assign the contract. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You'll want to make sure you look through that contract and see if there's a no assignment clause. If there is, then you want to cross that out and you want to say, hey, I need the ability to assign my contract. At this point in time, I don't know if I'm going to buy it in one of my entities or if one of my partners is going to buy it in their entity. I need the flexibility to change the buyer of contract by closing. In other words, assign the contract. In other words, wholesale. I just don't say wholesale, and I usually don't even say assign. I just say, look, I need flexibility to change the buyer of contract just in case one of my other entities is the buyer or one of my partners or investors is the buyer, which is your cash buyer that you wholesale to, right? So you can say that with integrity. Okay, next thing is the price. So whatever price you're offering, how are you funding it? You typically want to say all cash. Proof of funds, are you providing a proof of funds? If there is, then you want to put C included. Those of you that are in my fast track mentoring program, you get unlimited proof of funds. That's also a feature in Flipster, which I'll be talking about a little bit tomorrow and maybe the next day. So with on market, that's often required. In fact, almost always it's required to have a proof of funds letter. So I'll talk a little bit more about that at another time. But you also, number 5 is condition. So you want to say it's as is. And I want free and clear title. That's pretty standard. Number 6 would be an inspection contingency. I like to go for a 10-day. That gives me a full 10 days to do due diligence on the deal. That way, if I'm off on something, I can readjust, right? I can renegotiate a lower price or terminate the contract if I need to. Now, if I can't get a 10-day, I'll try to get a 7-day or a 5-day, but I like to try to get a 10-day inspection contingency. Okay, number 7 is earnest money. With on market, they typically want to see an earnest money. Now, $1,000 is pretty standard. Could be more, could be less. Now, earnest money sits in escrow and it's applied towards the purchase at closing. If you wholesale, it gets reimbursed to you at closing. So your earnest money, you have to float it until closing day. What if you don't have the earnest money? Well, you could put earnest money due at the end of my 10-day inspection. Find your cash buyer, get your cash buyer to pay the earnest money. That's one way around it. Otherwise you got to come up with it. You can borrow it from somebody, but earnest money is a part of doing on market with agents. Closing date is, I typically put 30 days from accepted offer. That way, if we go back and forth a little bit, the clock doesn't start until we have an executed agreement. Number 9, access to the property. This is very important. If it's vacant, you want to put in your offer unrestricted access via a lockbox. If it's occupied, there's a seller or a renter in the property, then you want to put access with 24-hour notice. It's important this is in your offer and the seller agrees to it because you have to be able to get into the property if you're going to wholesale it. Number 10 is the closing company. Very important. You want to put seller agrees to close with buyer's title of choice. That means you decide who the title company is. That way you can make sure that you are closing with a wholesaler-friendly title company. And then number 10 would be anything else that you might want to include, like appliances are included or property is to be broom swept clean or whatever other things you might have. So this is in your agent offer sheet. This is what you provide to the agent to fill out the contract. Now, I went through that pretty quick. You might have some questions around that. Again, guys, this is all stuff that I teach in detail and coach in a lot of clarity and work with my students very directly on these things. So I'm just quickly going through this so that you understand what needs to be included in that agent offer sheet. Now, here's the secret to win big with agents. Okay. If you really want to do the agent model well, if you want to excel at the agent model, if you want to do 3 to 5 deals consistently every month, this is the mindset you need to have around agents. always focus on the relationship, not the deal. Deals come and go. Sometimes they'll work. Sometimes the seller will take your offer low enough, and sometimes they won't. But if you focus on the relationship, that will turn into thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and now for me anyway, millions of dollars. I have agents now that have been bringing me deals, that call me with deals for 20 years. And I've done millions of dollars with the same agents over and over again, deal after deal, year after year, because I've established the relationship. I don't think about a deal right now. I think about, how do I do deals with this agent for the next 10 years, right? Like, think that way and you will do really well. Okay, now let's shift gears, guys, and let's go to off market. So with off market, I've got some scripts to help you really get comfortable talking to sellers. This is just a guide, right? Like, it's going to take practice. It's going to take coaching. You're going to need support. You're going to need some help to really excel and accelerate your ability to work with sellers and agents too directly and do that at a high level. So when we talk about off market, now we're dealing with a seller directly. There's no bridge between the seller like with agents. With agents, we never actually talk to sellers. We only talk to the agent. The agent's the gatekeeper. With off market, direct to seller, we're now talking to the seller directly, which means we don't know if they want to sell, and we need to understand if they're even motivated to sell. So in the wholesaling business, we have 4 pillars of motivation. These are the 4 things that we have to uncover and discover in order to know that we're talking with a motivated seller. The only way we get a discounted property is if the seller's motivated to sell. They have to have things going on that would create that motivation. And guys, this is really about 5% of the market. About 5% of all transactions that happen in any given market in any month are motivated sellers. So we're targeting these motivated sellers that are looking for a fast, convenient cash offer to solve their problem. That's what we do. That's our job. Our job is to find motivation, not create motivation. Okay, when you understand that, you'll approach off market much differently. You're not to create motivation, you're there to find motivation, already existing motivation. So the first pillar of motivation of the 4 is hardship. This means the seller's going through some type of situation in their life. Usually it's financial, where they desperately need to get rid of this property. Now, typically hardship could be one of 2 things. It could be they really need the cash from the property that's in the equity that's tied up in the property, or they need to stop the bleeding. Yesterday, I did an interview with my fast track students, and it was a first deal interview. So students' first deal. And when he was talking with the seller did not care about price, did not care about making money from the deal. All they cared about was getting out of the property to stop the bleeding. I call it stop the bleeding. They didn't want to make the mortgage payment anymore. They didn't want to pay the insurance anymore. They didn't want to deal with the maintenance and the utilities. They just wanted the property to go away. So their motivation wasn't to make money from the equity. Their motivation was to stop the bleeding. It was bleeding them money every month, and they wanted to stop that. So hardship is they want rid of that property desperately for one reason or another. Is that there? Your job is to uncover that. Is there a hardship? The second thing is urgency. Urgency means they need it done now. They need out of this property. They need to get the money from it or stop the bleeding, and they need to do that sooner rather than later. If a seller says to you, hey, I want to sell my property when my son graduates high school, we'd like to sell, and they're in 5th grade right now. Okay, not a lot of urgency, right? They got time. So you're not going to get a discount if there's no urgency. So how quickly are they looking? How badly are they looking to get rid of this property? The third thing is condition. Typically for motivation to exist, the property needs to be in poor or bad condition. It could be in average condition, but in most cases, the worse the condition, the higher the motivation. And the reason why is because properties in bad condition are very difficult to sell. They're a lot of work. They don't sell well on market. Typically, retail buyers aren't interested in them. They need a lot of work. So that creates more motivation because they don't want to put the money into the project. Poor condition is one of our 3 pillars. And then the 4th one is price. Price meaning they're willing to take a discount on the price. Now, the funny thing about price is a deceiver oftentimes, meaning there's a hardship, there's urgency, it's in poor condition, and then the seller tells you a retail price. but they don't really mean it. They really will take a much lower price. They're just leading out with a retail price. If I have the first 3 pillars of motivation present, really if I have 2 of the first 3 present, I move forward with an offer. I move forward with making an appointment. I move forward with turning this into hopefully a deal. Okay, I typically need 2 out of 4, and usually it's 1 a hardship, urgency, or condition. But price, they could tell me any price they want. If I know the other pillars of motivation are there, then there's a very good chance that the price is a deceiver and they'll actually come quite a bit down on the price. So these are the 4 pillars. So your job is to discover this and uncover this in your conversation with sellers. I'm going to give the off-market offer process that I use that is allowed me to get lots of deals, hundreds of deals, and at very big discounts. And I'm going to simplify this on one slide and try to explain this to you. Here's what this looks like. You have to build a relationship of trust. Now, the relationship of trust is ongoing. It happens initially. It happens throughout the call. This is something that you're doing all the time. And how do you build a relationship of trust? You're connecting with that person. You need to show empathy. You need to show understanding. You need to try to get in their shoes. You need to let them feel like you're credible, like you're responsible, like you will come through and solve their problem. Your job is to help the seller feel like you're the solution to their problem. That's what they're looking for. I said this earlier. Sellers are looking for certainty, not price. They want to know that you will come through and solve their problem more than they care about what kind of price they get. Okay, not retail. Retail wants the price, right? But distressed sellers want that assurance. So you have to learn how to create a really strong, I call it BRT, build a relationship of trust. Now, while you're doing that, you need to find out, and this can happen right away or later in the conversation. I do it in the first 30 to 90 seconds. You find out what price the seller wants first. You need the seller to name the price first. So I'll say, what price were you hoping to get for the property? Hopefully they tell you a number. If they don't, I'll move away from it. I'll talk about the seller. I'll talk about the property, and then I'll come back to it. I'll come back and I'll say, now, surely you had a price in mind. What price were you hoping to get? I'll keep coming back to it until I get the seller to name a price. Now, whatever price they tell me, all that's letting me know is, are they motivated to a point where they're offering me a low number, or are they trying to hold out for a higher number? But I need them to establish what they want so that I can do the next step, which is to anchor low. Now, I call this an anchor. Now, an anchor needs to be 3 things. The anchor price has to be low. It has to be a ballpark number, not a concrete number. And it needs to solicit a no. So the point is that they say, I can't go that low. There's no way I could sell it for that price. Do not do step 2 unless you've built a relationship of trust. It will backfire on you. They'll chase you off the porch. They'll be offended. They'll cuss you out. You have to first establish a relationship of trust. Then you make your anchor price, and you can find out the seller's price first. You don't have to have a relationship of trust to find out the seller's price, but you do have to have a relationship of trust to do the anchor. So it's got to be low, it's got to be a ballpark figure, and it's got to solicit a no. And here's my favorite go-to. There's many of them I do. This one's my favorite. In the perfect world, I would like to be around 100,000. Okay, now what I just said was low. I mean, assuming that that's a low offer, it's a ballpark because I said around, or I said in a perfect world, and I know that that's going to solicit a no. So then what happens? Well, the seller's going to say, there's no way I could do that deal. And then that's exactly what I want. That's the positioning I want. And then what I'm going to say is, I'm going to say, yeah, that's my number in a perfect world, but how close to that price can you get? Okay, this is the process, guys. This is how you get these killer low deals. Now, guys, you should see the drop in price that happens when I follow this method. My fast track student, Keith Warren, and my other fast track student, now partner, Jordan Budd, they did this deal. Well, when Keith talked to the seller and made the appointment, the seller was at like 260 was the number that they put out. Jordan ended up getting the deal for 100,000. Okay, so he anchored low. He said, how close to that price can you get? Seller came all the way down from 260 all the way to 100,000, and they got the deal and then wholesaled it for 140,000. The seller wasn't offended. In fact, the seller loved Keith. I did a video on this on my YouTube channel, guys. You should watch it. It's really awesome to hear how Keith explained and Jordan, how they put this deal together. But they had done such a fantastic job building rapport and making a connection with the seller, that the seller was more than happy to come down to the number to get the deal done. Okay. So that's how valuable this is, that process. Hope that makes sense, guys. Leave a comment. Let me know right now if the 4-step anchor model makes sense to you. Say, Jerry, I get it. That's brilliant. I understand what I need to do. Build relationship of trust, get the seller to name the price first, anchor low, and settle at my desired price. That's the process you want to follow. Now, I mentioned this earlier, guys. The cheat code to doing 3 to 5 deals a month consistently, month in and month out, the cheat code here to do that is you've got to be making 5 new offers a day, a minimum of 5 new offers a day. Now, I showed you earlier how to do 5 new offers a day with on market, right? If you're doing the 555 method, then you'll be making 5 new offers every day on market. Now, if you combine that with off market, which I highly recommend, that was part of your assignments earlier, was to go pull a list, skip trace it, get some phone numbers. So now you can start to cold call that list. You've got their phone numbers. You can start to cold call that list and follow the low anchor offer process I just showed. Now you're making off-market offers. Imagine this, guys. Imagine you could set up and structure your business where you've got leads generating every single day for free and low-cost methods. You've got a very fast and easy way to analyze those deals to get to an offer price. And you've got a very good model to talk to agents, talk to sellers, make these offers. Now the missing piece is just the consistency. That's it. Just the consistency. And if you've got support, you've got some good mentoring, you've got some good coaching, you've got some good tools to fine tune this, to really dial it in and get good at it. This is how you start to do deals consistently. As you start to do deals consistently, you're now going to generate cash because you're going to be wholesaling deals at a high level. That cash can then be reinvested into your growth. So you're self-funding your own growth. And now you're building a 6-figure and moving on to a 7-figure business. This is the roadmap, right? This is the model to get there. But that 5 offers a day, if you're doing that and you're doing that 5 days a week, that's going to be 25 offers in a week. That's going to be 100 offers in a month. When you make 100 offers a month, there's a couple things that happen that I want to talk about. 2 things happen. One is you're demonstrating to yourself, to the universe, to God, you're putting out that you're doing the work. And I believe wholeheartedly in the law of momentum. The law of momentum says when you're consistently doing something, it's going to build on itself. It's going to pick up speed along the way, and it's going to happen easier and faster as you go. That's momentum. Momentum's hard in the beginning to create it because it's pushing a boulder up a hill, but then you're going to round the corner and that boulder is going to roll down the hill at a much faster speed. You've got to create that momentum though. When the momentum is created is when you see massive traction. Your 10th deal, guys, is 10 times easier than your first deal, and your 100th deal is 100 times easier than your 10th deal. That's momentum, building that momentum. So when I say that, when you're making the 100 offers a month, something magical happens. You're showing the universe that you're willing to do the work, you're building momentum, and there's the law of averages starts to play in. And the law of averages is that if you're in the right place at the right time often enough, then good things happen. And so I call this the stars align. If you're making 100 offers a month, you don't even have to be very good at this. You don't have to be great on the phone. You don't have to be amazing at any of it. But if you're there and you're putting an offer in front of a seller, you'll be at the right place at the right time. The stars will align and a seller or an agent will say yes to your low offer and you'll get a deal. It's about putting yourself in a place to win. The best way to get lucky, if we want to call it that, the best way to get lucky in this business is to put yourself in a situation where you'll be lucky more often. The more often you're in a situation to get lucky, the more often the luck will happen. The stars are all going to align. I believe wholeheartedly that the deal of a lifetime comes around about once a week if you're in the game. And how do you get in the game? The game is where you're making offers every day. That's the game. The game is making offers every day. That means you have to have quality conversations with agents and sellers every single day. If you're doing that, stars will align and magic will happen. It just will. Take me up on it, guys. Like I've yet to see somebody prove me wrong about this. Okay.